Hi. I'm going to start this out by telling you just a little bit about me. I'm going to talk a lot in this short time we have together. Judo is going to get mentioned a lot. I've done judo for almost 25 years because I'm officially an old. I like to make babies. I got three that I know of, and they're pretty cool. And my sisters are my favorite people. You're going to hear me refer to a lot of things in terms of parenting. And if it's not parenting, it's probably judo. So just love me through it. Just love me through it. I also want to tell you a little bit about my work history. So, about a million years ago, when I was a young lass, I got a really useless undergraduate degree in psychology and women's studies. And that did not lead to riches, as you might imagine. So a few years ago, after I had careers in close personal protection. I was a bouncer for forever. I ran medical practices, and I never really felt passionate about any of these things. A few years ago, I did the coding boot camp at Georgia Tech, which is awesome if you want to go into web development. But about halfway through, I realized I don't really want to go into web development. I fell in love with the concepts of DevOps and just the whole culture and the concept of automation. Um, to be blunt, DevOps has a lot more in common with being a stay-at-home mom than you would ever imagine. So I got lucky. Airbus being the global awesome company that it is, we have an office here in Atlanta in the southern U.S. And they were kind enough to make an internship for me. And I even, I told them not to hire me. I did. I made it clear that I knew nothing. I had no idea what I was doing, and that they would have to teach me everything. And bless them, they said, okay. So here I am a few years later, and I've seen firsthand what it's like to be a know nothing, straight out of school, entry level junior. So why would a baby dev want to talk to y'all about how to advance your careers? Well, as you can imagine, having been taken in by a company as an intern, and now 2 years later being in the role that I'm in, this is very near and dear to my heart. The concept of properly mentoring and fostering new developers is very personal for me. But I do want to make it clear, while we are going to talk about the importance of mentoring, we're also going to talk mostly about how to use these things for your own good. In a nutshell, what I'm going to tell you is, obviously, why would we do this, right? We're first going to start thinking about mentoring. Seniors get better. What negative impacts does it have on your company if you don't do the things that I'm going to encourage you to do? Then we're going to talk about mutual welfare and benefits. So in judo, one of the two key maxims is mutual welfare and benefit. I hate altruism. I think it's stupid. And I think the best acts of helping and caring are when everyone involved benefits and gets something out of the arrangement. So we're going to talk about how to use your role as mentor to further your career and get ahead. And then, we're going to talk about how to do the thing. I really hate vague advice. I despise it when people are like, okay, well, just go, just go be good at that. Go. No, I'm going to tell you how to actually do this step by step. And it's going to be things that you can make a checklist and actually check off. So let's jump right into this, shall we? A wise man once said, people are a resource. And it's true. Failure to nurture and properly mentor your junior devs is a business issue, not just a moral one, for lots of reasons. First of all, unlike a precious puppy, a baby dev won't stick around at your company with them or don't take care of them. I think you all know that magic day that happens about a year into your first role, where suddenly you have recruiter calls every single day. If you don't take care of your junior devs, they'll realize that. I actually met a couple of small business owners who were like, oh, good riddance, just use them for fun. Well, that's not a good long-term strategy. First of all, just the cost of recruiting is massive. I mean, think about just a job interview, 1 hour of several members of your dev team. Think about how much they make, and then add up what that hour is costing in man hours. When you start doing this through multiple candidates, oh my gosh, recruiting costs, not cheap, but onboarding costs. I mean, I walked into my first role and got a new computer and a keyboard and a mouse and about 1 million dongles because I became a Mac person the day I started here. Um, those things cost money. They just do. And onboarding is expensive, not just financially, but in time. Because you get a new person, someone's got to help them with the code base, someone's got to help them set up their machine, someone has to walk them through where the snacks live in your office, if you indeed have snacks in your office, and until no one's getting any work done because you're onboarding a new team member. Whereas you could just keep your devs that start out junior and help foster them, help them promote, help them work up, and then they won't have to leave. These are important things. One of the ways that mentoring your junior talent not only saves your company money and is better long-term for business is it sets you apart as a leader, right? So I think everyone would probably agree that to be successful, an organization has to have good leadership. A few years ago, I sort of fell in love with the Toyota way, their sort of theory on like their set of managerial principles. And they talk a lot about how, to thrive, a company has to grow leaders who thoroughly understand the work, who live their philosophy, and who teach it to others. Right? Toyota knows that it's not enough to have good leaders. You have to have good leaders teaching other people to eventually be good leaders. Mentoring your junior talent and those resources isn't just about, you looking good as a leader or retaining employees. Think about when you are working on a product, if you have a deadline, if you have things that have to be done, have to be accomplished, if they don't happen, do the higher ups say, well, let me see who contributed what across this team? No, it's just the team failed, right? Fostering your junior talent and your entry levels makes your team stronger as a whole. And this is actually something that comes from judo that I've always really cared about. When I started judo, I was a chubby 13-year-old with braces and glasses with little pigtails. And it didn't seem weird to me that at the beginning and end of class, we would bow in with, a wall of black belts up the Joseki. And, I'm a little white belt at the very end of the line in the back of the room. Right. That didn't seem weird until I became a black belt and started coaching my own students. And it bothered me, the ranking of people and the fact that we were a team really sank in at one point. And so I started, as a nod to tradition, because those things do matter, I would bow in the traditional way at the start of class. But to bow out, I wouldn't do the formal thing. I would just say, circle up. Circle, regardless of rank, and just remind all of my students that we are only as strong as our weakest. And every minute we put into training with those white belts, the clumsy ones who are probably going to break all of our legs, every minute we put into strengthening them is making us as a team stronger. So this didn't seem a foreign concept to me coming into development work and seeing a dev team. Well, yeah, of course it makes sense. The more time and effort you put into your junior talent, the stronger your overall team is going to be. This makes sense. So how do we do this, right? So you're mentoring someone. How do you use that to set yourself apart as a good leader? Well, one of the things I recommend as an employee and as a junior, I keep a written record of everything I do. Every ticket I complete successfully, every problem I can't solve that just goes unresolved for whatever reason, or we shift gears in the middle of it so I don't get to resolve it. Everything I accomplish, everything I learn, I keep a record. You can do that too. When one of your mentees accomplishes something, write it down in your records, and come review time, point out, hey, so-and-so was really struggling with this, and I took the time to mentor on this topic, and I recommended these learning resources, followed up, and now look at what she's accomplished. It's okay to take credit when you help people, and use that come review time to highlight that you're not just a good team member or a good employee, that you're a value add in that you're guarding the organization's other assets, other resources. And I think that that really actually shows loyalty to your company, that you want to invest in those long-term choices. There's other reasons that I think that mentoring is good for the person who's doing it. Not just that you can use it to get ahead in your career, but mentoring reinforces your own knowledge base, right? So the best way to learn is to teach, as they say. So every time you explain something to a noob, not only are you having to think of it in different terms perhaps than you might typically think of it, you're having to reword it, you're having to wrap your head around it in a different way, possibly coming up with metaphors, which is just reinforcing your own knowledge. But I'm sure many of you out there are 10, 15, 20 years into your career. Having to fill in a newbie on something you haven't actively thought about in years, in front of your mind, things that you know that you learned at some point, but you don't consciously think about all the time. And you might find that once you've been mentoring for a while, as you're trying to problem solve and troubleshoot, things that you haven't thought about in a while start popping up into your mind to try to solve problems. It's a really neat byproduct of teaching people who are years behind you, is that it just keeps things fresh in your mind. And obviously also technology is forever changing and there's always new things, and having to stay abreast of that for your mentees just going to help you. Um, Obviously, yes, I care very much about using your role as mentor to further your career, to do good for yourself. These things matter. However, there is a touchy-feely side to this, right? I didn't realize how good mentoring someone could feel until I started coaching judo. Because, obviously, like competing in judo, I like winning. I like gold medals. I think that they match my complexion. I like the way it feels to stand on a podium and hear my nation's anthem played. I like the way it feels to stand over someone that I've just beaten and know that I just won. Those things feel great. I didn't realize how rewarding and fulfilling it would be to start coaching. One of the first moments it really got to me, I had a student, she was 12 at the time, and it was her first big tournament, and she threw the opponent and ended up having to pin to win. And afterwards she comes bouncing off the mat, she's so happy, and I'm so proud of you. And I had to excuse myself to the ladies room because I was so caught up with emotion. And I'm standing there and a woman walks in and sees me crying and says, "Ma'am, are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I'm good. My little girl just beat the shit out of another little girl, and I am so proud." I didn't know I could be that emotional and proud over someone I'd helped accomplishing. If you are truly fostering the professional and personal growth of your mentees, it feels good to watch them accomplish, to watch them earn certifications, to solve problems, um, to give to the product on which you're working. It does feel good. There is definitely a touchy feely sort of side of this for me. So, we've talked about what happens if you don't mentor. Well, you're going to lose these junior developers. You're going to lose their institutional knowledge. You're going to lose you're going to lose within your team due to constant turnover. How do you use that to help yourself? Cool. We're going to keep track of their accomplishments, use that at review time. We're going to go ahead and take credit for anything we do to help other people. That's reasonable. But how do you actually do it? Like, how do you actually mentor someone? Well, there's some things. The first thing you're going to want to do if you really want to take on some mentees is tell whoever's in charge of you that you're doing it. And this is a twofold purpose. One, you might need to account for some time. If you have two people you're mentoring, each of whom you're going to give 2 30-minute one-on-ones a week, well, that's 2 hours that you're not doing work. You're not doing your regular job. You're doing other things. People might want to know, for an accounting of time, what you're doing. And it might be more involved than that, just depending on your role in the company, how many you're taking on, and what sort of time they need, right? The other thing is you can't get credit for something no one knows you're doing. So I don't see anything wrong with pointing out to whoever is over you, "Oh yeah, I've taken so-and-so under my them." Just me. Someone should know you're doing it. This I think I should have to say, but oh my gosh, make sure your noobs have adequate tools. Um, Originally, when I wrote this, I did a survey. I sent out a survey, ended up getting several hundred responses. That was really exciting. But it was a survey about people's experience in their first role in tech, their junior experience. The number of people who just didn't have a working computer, or they had a machine provided by their company, but it was like baby's first laptop with, 2 gigs of RAM and like had Play School on the bottom. I mean, make sure your people have adequate tools. It is such a waste of resource time and productivity if they're a month into the first job and they're on their third computer. Like, if you don't have control over that, figure out who does and harangue them until people have adequate tools. I want to talk a little bit about performance management. Right. This performance management is just, again, a set of theories and principles that I think cover really well how to mentor and foster. The very first thing we're going to management is that everyone should know exactly what they're supposed to do. Right. So especially juniors, don't take for granted that they know what they're supposed to work on. When you get a new person, take 10, 15 minutes out of your life. Start with your task management system. If you use Jira, don't assume they know how to use Jira. Sit down for, again, 10, 15 minutes, not a huge time investment, and make sure that your noobs know exactly how you track tickets, how to write a ticket, how they're estimated, any sort of standard operating procedures around your task management. Invest a few minutes in teaching them that. You will save hours in dealing with that later. Or, a lot of times with entry levels, you have issues like they want to work, but they don't know what tickets to pick up. They're a little bit overwhelmed. Take the time, maybe once a week, to look through outstanding tickets that match their skill set, maybe push them a little bit, get them a little bit out of their comfort zone, but take the time to say, hey, I think these 3 would be really good options for you, and help them narrow that field so that they stay working and they don't just get bogged down. Tour your code base with them. Tour your code base with them. I did it, and towards the end, I'm looking at the code produced for my final project, and I'm like, wow, there's so many files, it's so involved. It's 12 database tables. This is so much. And then I got my first job and saw an actual enterprise code base and was like, this is a lot. It can be really overwhelming for noobs to walk into. Think about your code base if you've never seen it, right? Take a minute. Don't just tour what's there. Give them a demo of the actual product on which they're working so they see this is what we're working towards, and then show them that code in the context of this is how this relates to what we're doing. Giving, when I started my first role, my then mentor, Terry, took the time to just sit down and show me what we make, which, coming into a DevOps internship, no one really thought was that important, but she did. And it has made a lot of difference in the way I think about what I'm working on as far as context. I cannot stress enough the importance of making sure that your juniors know exactly what to do. Now, standard operating procedures. This is a big one. Everything that you take the time to teach them as far as best practice is going to come back later in time savings, right? So one of the things I recommend if you're going to have junior on your team in general is have a setup repository, an internal facing repository that is dedicated to things like setting up their development environment. But don't just have, some markdown saying install this, do this. Take the time to create something where your new people, you don't have to hold their hand or sit there with them, but they can literally open up this repo and say, okay, we're going to install this, and here's why. Put it in the README. This is how this relates to our product. This is where this integrates into the stack, and here's what happens if we didn't have this. Those sorts of things take a little bit of time. Maybe you divide that up across your team to create this living, breathing document. I cannot tell you how nice it is to walk into a role and not have to have someone sit there with me and not have to blindly grope my way through it, but just to have had a document saying, this is how we're going to set this up, and here's why, and here's all of the different things that could go wrong if we don't set this up correctly. I cannot say enough good things about things like style guides, somewhere that's clearly defined your naming conventions. Are we tabbing or spacing? Any errors as far as producing code, have that available to them somewhere they can reference. Your mentees need to know if they're meeting their goals, if they're hitting targets. And I don't just mean work-wise. I definitely recommend in your one-on-ones going over short, mid, and long-term goals, right? So let's say maybe once a month you have a meeting to talk about what you're hoping to accomplish that month. But maybe once a week you say, hey, it's Monday morning. Hope you had a good weekend. Here are the things I'd like to see by Friday. Now let them manage their time between Monday and Friday. Or if you're going to do it every 2 weeks for those 10 days, let them decide how they get from A to Z, but give them a Z so that they're not feeling stagnant or or like they're just sort of working but not really getting anywhere. One of the biggest fears that juniors have is stagnation. And again, this is what leads to that whole concept of the only way out, or the only way up is out, right? If your juniors don't know that they are progressing towards promotion and a title change and, just long-term career goals, they're not going around. So as a mentor, you can provide them with one information take for them to be considered mid-level and to take that next step in their career, how many years it should take to get there, and what they have to show and demonstrate to get there. And then start breaking that down into tasks and chunks, manageable chunks where they can say, you know what, if I accomplish these things over the next 6 months, I'll be on track to meet my goal in the next year, 18 months, 2 years, whatever it is, right? Giving them clearly defined goals and objectives. I cannot say the importance of that enough. And then this feedback loop. Now, I have a psych degree. I will say positive reinforcement, can't go wrong with that. However, when juniors are making mistakes, it is just as important that you speak up, not just to save your product, but you'd be surprised how many times juniors, we don't know that we're doing something wrong. We genuinely sometimes don't know that something we're doing is problematic. If you've never worked on an enterprise level code base and you haven't been given a list of best practices and conventions for the team, you might not know that you're messing something up. The importance of one-on-ones and giving them both feedback, and it doesn't even have to be like a formal one-on-one meeting. If every PR has 2 to 3 reviewers and y'all all give a one-line comment, well, now this entry-level person on their PR has 3 useful, constructive, maybe critically constructive, but comments on how to improve their work. We don't know that we're doing anything wrong unless you tell us, and we don't know what we're doing anything right unless you tell us. I want to just stress, it is really important. The number of people that I surveyed that basically talked about having no mentorship, no guidance, feeling very alone in their first role, and like they didn't know what they were doing. It was really sad. So I would encourage y'all to be the person that makes your team stronger. Be the person that makes your juniors want to stay loyal to your team and your company, and be the person that gets, your share of recognition out of your hard work and what you are encouraging. I am always happy to talk about fostering your junior talent. Or every company and every team has unique needs and unique requirements. So I'm always connect and talk about ways that you, with your unique situation, can be a good mentor and can help foster. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we can do some questions.